Livewire Sportscast. We're back. My bad, messed up.
Take two.
Take two. Livewire Sports Channel podcast. We're back. It's your host Jay, and I got a special guest with me, my guy Aaron. What's happening?
Hey, what's happening? Happy to be here.
It's good to finally have you on. Right now, basketball is experiencing like a really great time right now, leading into the playoffs, which start Monday. So we have a lot to go over because the seeding has now been set. Blazers make the playoffs at the 8th seed. How do you feel about that?
I feel excited about that. That's what I was pulling for the whole time. I feel like weirdly, Damian Lillard still is somehow in my mind disrespected, and I don't think most people would actually like disrespect him verbally.
Yeah.
But we sleep on him. I feel like over and over and over again. And
yes,
I mean that's what I wanted. And I promise you, if I was the Lakers, I would not want to be seeing them in the first round.
Do you think they can beat the Lakers? I'm in favor of Portland because I don't trust the Lakers right now for several reasons. Real quick before you go, some of the reasons is, again, and I've said this before, the team is not built properly for success. You have too many guys who do the exact same thing, but they hurt each other's game. Case in point, if JaVale plays good, Dwight won't. If J.R. Smith plays good, Deion Waiters won't. LeBron will do LeBron stuff because it's LeBron. He's one of the greatest of all time. Anthony Davis has still not proven himself, and Kyle Kuzma has not proven to be a reliable third option. They lack playoff experience in the backcourt, which would really help them against a backcourt like Damon, CJ, and Rondo and Avery Bradley. They're a little bit older than people think, too, and they just don't have... They didn't go into the playoffs with the rhythm that they should have, whereas Portland has picked up at the perfect time. They're rolling right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's my thoughts. I mean, look, obviously, no one in the West is an easy out. You look at 2-7, 3, all of them. I mean, they're great matchups. I think this is another one of those. And you're right. I mean, if I'm putting money on it, I'm going Lakers. Right. I don't think necessarily Portland's going to win, but of all those teams that were fighting for that 8th spot, I promise you, every dude on that Lakers squad was, I mean, that was the last team I wanted to see. I'd see Memphis, Phoenix, any of them. San Antonio even. I'd take him 100%, especially with how Dan's playing right now. And he's going to come in hot. The Lakers are going to have a few days off, still not be in rhythm. And the Portland's playing, tomorrow and possibly even in Sunday going into the playoffs.
That is true. So you would think there's some fatigue. The only reason why I'm kind of ruling that out right now is because they had literally so much time to rest. I think this gives them an advantage with the Lakers playing less games and not being at full strength. I think this gives Portland even more opportunities to find a rhythm for guys like CJ, because we know Dame's going to do what he does. Melo has been playing great since returning back, and he played good even before he was pretty much put out of the league. But if CJ gets rolling now, like I said, I trust those guys because, LeBron's going to do what he does, but Dame doesn't get outperformed by other star players. I'm very curious to see how they're going to do, and I'm a very big fan of Nurkic doing what he's doing right now. They have, I think, the pieces that they need this year as well to maybe put the Lakers out. You said you're not in favor of that, but I'm curious why.
Well, I would be in favor of it. I mean, honestly, as far as who I want to win, I don't really care. I want good basketball.
True.
I think the Lakers are the better team. Obviously, they're the one seed in the West. They are probably the best team in the NBA. I say that. I believe that. But the best team doesn't always win, and especially with the current situation, and like you said, playing less games. Not only less games, but the games that they played, especially recently once they locked up the one seed.
Yes.
LeBron was playing 20 minutes, if he was playing at all. Same thing with AD. I mean, Callan Horton-Tucker was getting minutes, which I actually look pretty good for them for the future.
Yeah.
There's so many question marks, and to take so much time off, you're right, be older than most people think, and not have the rhythm that the Trailblazers as a team, and Damian Lillard averaging, 52 over the last 3 games or whatever. I mean, that's a hard thing. No home court advantage in the bubble. Just best of 7. It don't matter. So I say that just to, be able to look back and say, oh, see, I didn't actually say the Trailblazers were going to win. But I think it'd be great to see it, and I think it could happen. I'm just not positive it will.
But see, now you bring up an interesting point that leads me into my next question, particularly being in the bubble. You see a lot of guys having performances that we know for a fact probably would not have happened. Well, I said no for a fact, but then probably wouldn't have. I don't believe that TJ Warren would have had these same performances had they been like, I'm sorry. Now, you got to give him props because he's playing out of his mind. He has been, you can't deny that the guy has been hooping. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. But while I am very interested to see Jimmy Butler get hold of him for the next few days, like that's gonna be amazing. But I am curious about your perspective on how the bubble has benefited players' mindset because I feel like they've taken away the distractions. But with that, I also want you to address because the NBA has brought in like a new rule essentially where now these guys can get a visitor, and I'm not a fan of that idea at all. What do you feel about both of those aspects?
Yes, I think you're right. Actually, before the bubble even started, I had a lot of conversations with people out here just about, hey, we're about to see some real pure basketball. And that's what we're getting, right? And I think that's going to only increase going into the playoffs because there was so much Milwaukee, LA, they'd already clinched their seeds. There was so much, just kind of playing to get through and avoid injuries. Whereas now, getting into the playoffs, it's no joke. It's go time. And those distractions are still gone. And I think, like you said, with TJ Warren, you don't have the outside stuff. You don't have the crowd noise. I know they're pumping some stuff in, and there's a little bit of
but it's not a real fan interaction.
It's an empty arena, and they're just hooping, and that's awesome. That to me, this could be the most fun playoffs to watch ever because of that. So, I think you're right. I guess I'm not sure how else to say it outside of looking at dudes like TJ Warren, looking at the Suns coming in and just balling.
Now, with that, real quick, before you get to the other part of it, which was pretty much people coming in as visitors, like having visitation now. Like I said, I'm not a fan of that, but I also wanted to address Devin Booker and those guys. For them to come back and play the way they did was absolutely incredible. All things considered, these were essentially playoff games, and they played incredible. So I am curious about your thoughts on maybe extending maybe the amount of seeds in the playoff, maybe going 10 deep.
You mean for this year specifically? Or just...
Going forward. I think going forward.
I think there's an argument to be had, although I struggle to add more teams, and we already have over half of the teams in the NBA making the playoffs.
That is true.
We got 16 out of 30. So to go to 20 out of 30, it just, I don't know, it dilutes it a little bit. I like getting to see Portland play LA. Jump and not LA getting the Lakers getting a bye. So I think without having thought of that like ever, I would say my initial reaction is I'd like to see it stay the same. Okay. Maybe we switch to a 1-16 basis instead of East versus West, just given the competitive advantage the West has had.
I prefer that.
But, a lot of people increasing the number of teams. I could have seen it for this year and the bubble and the specific situation.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I would not be for that. I don't think.
Okay, I get that. So visitation, though, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think it's risky. I mean, why ruin it going into the playoffs? Now I know there's still protocols in place. I know they got to quarantine. For 8 days or 10 days or something. I think it said they can do it in the team's market and then fly to Orlando and then 4 more days or do all 8 days or whatever in Orlando. I think it was 4 people per player, if I'm not mistaken. And that seems wild to me, especially when they only have 1 ticket per game that they can give away.
It's just not smart. Maybe they're there for moral support.
Like if you got a spouse or whatever, significant other, like in that sense, maybe there's something to be said, but bringing in the friends, bringing in the, I know there's stipulations around it. I just don't understand why risk everything at this point. Obviously the bubble's worked.
Yes.
It's done what it was supposed to do, and so hopefully that continues, but it just seems like a unnecessary risk.
I get, that is absolutely true, and I think it does lead to a substantial amount more trouble. Not even just for the players, but literally the people that are working there, because now they have to work even extra harder on protocols, because a lot of people don't think about that, but the workers there, the people cleaning the gyms, things like that, their health is also at risk. So again, I'm not in favor of it on any aspects of it. So I mean, I get why they might consider that, but again, I thought it was only one person per. But even then, I don't think you can dictate who should be able to come because I might not have a spouse, but I might have met somebody online, and you can't tell somebody how they feel about somebody too. So now you're dictating who can come as well. So there's nothing
Yeah,
about
they
it
were,
to
they
me
were
that makes
saying
sense.
things like, oh, you can't have. They can't just be like an acquaintance. You have to have met them like a certain amount of time. Like, it's weird. Yeah, the stipulations are weird.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you don't know how somebody met either. I could tell you I met somebody wherever. You know what I
right.
mean? You don't know. So it's just again when these kind of questions come up, I think that shows the level of risk that is being involved, and I just think it's again like you said, it works right now. Why change it? That's part of the problem is that there's been too much changing of things that don't need to be fixed, as opposed to fixing the issues that do. For example, we're working on that, but we should have more referees during the game to do better officiating. Now, I will give the refs credit for this. They have done a significantly better job since returning to the bubble. Maybe they needed time off too because the calls
Well,
that I had
yeah,
been
can you
seeing
imagine
previously.
20,000 people screaming and wanting to kill you every night?
Well, when you make the stupid calls that they do, I kind of can.
I mean, there's bad calls, but let's be real. I mean, how often do they go to the video board and look for like 2 minutes of super slow-mo replays and still can't tell? Yet 90% of the time, in real time, they get it right. To me, refs, and I will lose my mind at the refs with the best of them. I promise you that. But taking a step back and looking at it, I think refs are disrespected. I think they have the toughest job in pro sports, and there's no possible way for them to get it right every time. And the fact that they do almost every time is pretty impressive.
I feel as a little bit, I don't know, because they miss things. Okay, so my feeling is, okay, you get paid to do this job, right? So you signed up for this, you knew what was possibly coming with it. If you're on a road game, essentially, and say you're in Utah, where those fans have been known to be quite disrespectful and have also made a lot of racist remarks.
That's putting it nicely.
Exactly, right? But all things considered, if you go there, you make a bad call, yes, any fan in any city is going to lose their mind, but it's the calls that they do get wrong that are completely outrageous. So, for example, one of the things that comes to my mind and one of the worst calls I've ever seen, and it's really like a whole 2-minute sequence, is, I don't know if you remember, but it was OKC versus San Antonio. It's like 3-4 years ago, where Manu Ginobili is crowding the inbounder, which is Deion Waiters, and Deion just flat out extends his arm out on the inbounds and pretty much mushes him away. But then following that, it's like 5 fouls. And then Steven Adams jumps out to the corner to try to block Patty Mills, and the fans hold him in the freaking stands. So it's like, okay, if you called the initial thing, that whole situation could have been avoided. And so when you see people in the nosebleeds, they can see a travel and things like that. And the freaking refs who get paid however much money, they get a front row seat to the game. All you have to do is watch the game and make the accurate call. That's when it gets frustrating. How we can see it at home and people in the nosebleeds can see it, but guys 3 feet away can't.
Okay, so people in the nosebleeds, so yes, they miss some obvious ones sometimes. The same way Nick Young does it over the backboard. The same way dudes make mistakes every single game. Like, when they're right 90 or 95% of the time. And how often are you in a stadium, you make a call against the home team, nobody saw what happened. They're just booing and screaming at you and calling you names and saying they're going to kill your family because everyone else is, and you're into it. So I don't buy, like, I get, yes, I'm not trying to say there's not obvious missed calls. There are calls in the stands that, calls where the people in the nosebleeds can see, and the ref should have been able to see it. Also understand there's 3 guys watching 10, and it's impossible to see everything. And that, I think that opens up another conversation for adding more technology and things like that, but we can probably save that for another time. I don't know. I think that when you're getting ripped and booed and screamed at for every correct call that you make against the home team, no matter where you're at, that just happens. And you're just getting lit up always. You got coaches lighting you up, and they're wrong half the time.
And the players too.
Lighting you up, and they're wrong 75% of the time.
Now, that is something I wanted to address, because the players, like, I like Andre Iguodala, but he had started to become one of the worst, and he's one of the first ones that come to mind. because he'll flat out like bear claw slap you and then be like, "Where's the foul?" Well, you just knocked my man's head off his shoulders. So what do you think I'm gonna call, Andre? Like, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the players could be a
on
little bit out of
on the
pocket.
other side, you miss a layup because you contested. You shouldn't have taken that shot, and hands are going up. Like, I got hit.
Yes, I
Like,
agree with
dude,
that.
so I just, yeah, I don't know. I think refs get the short end of the stick.
I will agree with that. I do. I also think that at times they can abuse their power. There has
100%.
there's definitely
Joey
been a
Crawford
history.
was the worst.
That's the first one I thought of.
I mean, there's a lot of those. I watch a lot of college basketball too, and there's the Big Ten fan myself, and there's dudes up there I could name that are just so bad.
Absolutely. Now, that does make me think of, well, what if these circumstances were different, if we had more refs and better technology? That makes me think of, what if players and teams were healthier this year? Dream matchups, I guess you could say. What would be some of the matchups that you would want to see in this bubble? Guys, fully healthy, communication can be heard between the players. There's no distractions. There's no, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very curious to hear what your matchup situation would be if guys were healthy. Like, what are some of the team matchups that you would like to have seen? Hello?
Oh, sorry. I think I muted myself. So do you mean like just kind of one-on-one matchups, or
No, teams.
going into the playoffs specifically matchups?
Ooh. Oh, yeah. No, playoff specific.
Yeah, I mean, the entire Western Conference, just as a whole. I mean, I want to see every single game in the Western Conference playoffs because, I mean, imagine being the Clippers and having to play, Dallas at the 7?
That's going to be an interesting one.
Like, that's tough. 3 is Denver playing Utah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what's that?
I said, yeah, it's... I didn't even think about that. That is, yeah.
All of the playoffs in general this year are actually pretty exciting. Even if you look at the East,
Absolutely.
1 through 6 are quality teams. Brooklyn and Orlando, 7 and 8. Okay, Milwaukee, Toronto, they're moving on. But Boston, Philly in the first round at the 3 and the 6. Miami, Indiana. So I don't even think I got to look at it with if teams were healthier, because I think going into the playoffs, teams are healthier than they were the rest of the year. So I think we're getting that now.
Well, when I say healthier, I do mean particularly the teams that we would have been used to seeing at this point. So obviously the Nets, if they had Kyrie, KD, the dynamic of that team being healthy with DeAndre Jordan, Karis LeVert, Harris, Dinwiddie. They have such a nice team, so I would have been very curious to see how they would have performed. I am not a Sixers fan simply off of the strength of Brett Brown. You probably heard it on here before, but there is something about that man that angers me.
I've heard that from so many Sixers fans. It's wild. They hate that dude, and I don't envy his position either, having to do with trying to figure out how to work Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid together. I mean,
I don't feel like it's rocket science. I feel like it was super simple. I looked at it like, okay,
if Embiid would play 100% every game, that'd be a start.
Absolutely. If we're being honest, we all know LeBron is unguardable. Pretty much if Russell Westbrook is hitting his 3 as well as Giannis, they're unguardable. But physicality-wise, there is no way in the heck Joel Embiid shouldn't be the most physically dominant player. How is Giannis, who is 30, 40 pounds lighter, even though they're similar in height, how is he superior in dominance when you have that size and skill?
Giannis with the ball handling getting to the rim, I feel like it's still another level, but you're right. Joel Embiid should be averaging like 30 and 15 a game.
Seriously.
I mean, he is, when he turns it on, there is nothing that you can do, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Very true.
It just doesn't. So, the fact that he all of a sudden is getting mind-blowing to me. It should never happen. Mm-hmm. And, going into the playoffs, Sixers are in a tough spot, obviously, with Simmons being injured and all that. So maybe that 3-6 in the East isn't as good as I was thinking.
But that's what I was saying about even if they had Ben Simmons back. Again, to me, last year was the year, and I had said this when Ben Simmons got in. If you put him at the 4 and use him kind of like a souped-up Draymond, he can't shoot like Draymond because he can't shoot at all. And Draymond's not even that good a shooter. But if you had Joel at the 5, He could still go inside and dominate. You would have had Ben closer to the rim where he's best at, which is rebounding. He could also run and gun. You see what I'm saying? Now you have somewhat of a Golden State setup, but you have a 7-foot big who can dominate. Then you would have had Tobias at the 3, Jimmy at the 2, TJ McConnell at the point with JJ Redick, Josh Richardson, Markelle Fultz, amongst others coming off the bench. And Chandler. They would have had a really good situation. I think that last year was their year. And they didn't do anything they were supposed to do. They didn't return JJ Redick. JJ Redick went on his podcast. It was just like, oh, yeah, they kind of were just like, I was like a last resort. So I just went ahead and took the money and left. Like, you're not going to treat me like a 15th option when it's a 13-man roster. Like, no, especially when he was clearly the best shooter on that team and gave them the opportunities that they needed to thrive. So it was just, it's very annoying to look at this Sixers situation because, number one, you kind of cheated your way into a lot of draft picks, and you guys still are not growing through the process that you should be going through. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's true. That's true. There's no team more underwhelming compared to what they should be than the Sixers.
Absolutely.
It's not close.
Absolutely. And we're talking about teams who didn't thrive. That right now, I'm not saying that they would have had a championship team this year, but that team that they had the year prior, that can be kind of put up there with that Clippers team that had, J.J. Redick, Jamal Crawford, Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake, Grant Hill at one point, Matt Barnes, Lamar Odom, like all the freaking talent that they had, and you guys couldn't even get to the conference finals. That's absurd. So
they should have been giving up like 60. They should have been giving up like 60 points a game.
That's true.
With that lineup, even with Tobias Harris, the defensive liability that he is, you have Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. I mean, those are locked down dudes. Even TJ McConnell, when he was there, could play a little bit of defense.
Exactly.
Matisse Thybulle now, like, I know it's different periods, but they are, and I think it comes to Joel Embiid's mindset and the energy it gives off.
I think
they perform at about 70% of what they should, over and over and over and over again.
We're talking about 70% regular season. I don't even think it's that much in the playoffs. If we're being honest, even when they beat Brooklyn last year, I didn't think they should have won that series. They were just the more talented team with having. If Jimmy Butler wasn't there and Tobias, they would have gotten beat flat out. That's just my opinion. So again, like you said, they underachieve. I really do believe that if a coaching situation were to change, that Joel Embiid would do significantly better. And that's where, like, I always tell people now, like, I could honestly see, because him and Jimmy Butler have to have a really good connection, I'd be very curious to see how Joel Embiid would do there in Miami, because they are no nonsense from Pat Riley even to the players. Like, those young guys are on it, which is why I have a very serious appeal to that team. I like guys who have that dog in them, which is why we like guys like Dame. Jimmy Butler is one of my key, but he's not for everybody. But people like, we love guys that come from that old cloth, but then complain about he's too ferocious and stuff like that.
I know, it's annoying.
Certain guys like that I have an appeal to, because it's just like, one of my favorite players growing up was Gary Payton. I loved the dog and Gary Payton. So, I'm a
Pistons fan through and through my whole life.
Oh, for sure.
Talking about dudes who got dog in them. Tell me about the Bad Boys, the going to work era 2004 championship. I mean,
exactly.
100%. I've been a pro Jimmy dude forever, just because.
For sure.
You know what? He may not have all the natural ability of some dudes, but my guy is putting in the work. He is doing everything that he can do, and he's driving guys. Look at Miami. Look at how the young guys are responding to him there. Yeah. Sorry, Joel Embiid didn't respond well. That doesn't make Jimmy the. Sorry, I'm not supposed to.
I mean, it is what it is. But now I will say but the same thing goes for the Timberwolves. When he was there, they were killing. They were like doing excellent, and then he got hurt. And then Karl Anthony Towns went back to being losers, essentially. And then he comes back and woos you guys in the playoffs with 17 games left?
Didn't Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns start talking trash on him?
Yeah, it was Wiggins' brother as well. Like, dude, stop.
Wiggins' brother. You don't want to say how many members come into it. Like, okay, guy.
I don't know if you watch Game of Zones. Do you watch Game of Zones?
Bleacher Report, yeah.
Yes. Did you see the version of when they had Jimmy Butler come in and they were like, we're not going to trade him, and Thibodeau's like, I really like him. He's a really good teammate, and it's a cartoon version of it, and Jimmy comes in like, hello, more people. He just like starts hunting Karl Anthony Towns with an axe and a goat and like just playing them 3-on-3 and murdering them. So it's
gosh.
it was super funny. It probably sounds a little bit sadistic, but it's actually.
Being a Game of Zones fan, I can picture. I don't think I've seen that one. So you're trying to explain that to someone who didn't understand Game of Zones. Yeah,
they probably be like, yeah, you're a psycho. But no, go check that out.
So speaking of Thibodeau, if you don't mind me changing the subject.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, we've got the Knicks hiring Tom Thibodeau. I have personal interest in. Obviously, there was supposed to be a second bubble, which doesn't sound like it's going to happen anymore. So I'm curious. Thibodeau just kind of made me think of Knicks and the bad teams in the NBA. So I guess first off, what do you think about Tom Thibodeau? Is he a fit in New York? And second off, any thoughts on what I would call disadvantages of the worst teams in the NBA not being able to have any sort of play here?
Okay, so I'm going to ask those two questions, but the first part of it, there being a second bubble, I don't even get how that would work. When would it start? What is the benefit of a second bubble? You see what I'm saying? Is it simply for playoff seeding at that particular point?
No. It wouldn't be for playoff seeding at all. It would just be for these other, 8 teams or whatever it was to be able to get some play in. Between March when they ended and the start of next season, when all these other teams are going to get 10, 20, 30 games, the worst teams in the NBA get nothing and don't get any extra team cohesion. I mean,
that is true.
Obviously, I mentioned I'm a Pistons fan, and so I have a little bit of bias here, but that's frustrating. I get why they have to do the bubble as it is, right? I'm not saying these teams should have been included there, but what the talk was there's going to be a second bubble in September. Not games that count, but for live, real scrimmages between teams.
Which is smart. I think that would work if they had a definitive date for when these playoffs would end and when the next season would begin. Like, what's the layover?
That doesn't matter because it wasn't going to be televised stuff. It was literally just for them to get in and be able to play real basketball.
But also, I feel like if you give them too much time, well, now they have an advantage versus the teams that just finished. You see what I'm saying? Now they have more of a rhythm than the team that just won a championship. They're tired, broken down. You know what I mean? So I was looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah, maybe. But when you're the worst teams in the NBA, you're typically filled with young guys. You can look at that with a lot of those teams. And so now those young guys are losing 3 months of play compared to everybody else. A month compared to a lot of teams, and then depending on who makes how far in the playoffs.
I'm also not gonna lie. I'm a bit of a Warriors guy, so I'm kind of a fan of not.
Y'all are good. Don't tell. Yeah, y'all are good. Don't
let Steph and Dre and Clay get 100%. We'll get James Wiseman and then tear y'all up, and then we'll get back to our regular scheduled program.
That must be nice.
Now you are in Denver. Now I know you said you were a Pistons guy. However, I do love the Pistons. Anybody who knows me knows. Big fan of Isaiah Thomas. Magic Johnson's the greatest point guard. Isaiah Thomas is the greatest small guard to me of all time. People can say what they want about Allen Iverson.
Magic Johnson is his finest too, so both of those are cool with me.
Very true. MSU guy. Shout out to the Spartans, I guess, even though I'm a Central guy.
Yes, sir. Shout out.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, I'm born in Mount Pleasant, but a Michigan State fan, so we can relate.
Okay. All right, I guess we good. So, no, with you being from Detroit, though, you also right now reside in pretty much Colorado. I am also, we talked about this before, but I'm a big fan of Denver. I love that their best player is a center. And he plays the way he plays. I think, to me, Joe, like...
And a center who doesn't fit the bill, either.
Exactly. But that's what makes it great. Like, how is the most out-of-shape looking guy still the most dominant in overtime? You know what I mean? I haven't not seen him do great in any overtimes. So I'm very curious, which is insane. You would think, Joel Embiid and Andre Drummond, these guys, they be tearing it up. And no, they suck at overtime. He gets literally like 10 rebounds better. But I'm very curious, being from Denver, what is that? What does that fan base feel like out there with you guys having a team back in the playoffs with a great amount of talent? Even though you guys aren't 100% healthy right now, but how does that feel to have a team back in the playoffs? And also, what is your projection for that team?
Yeah, it's exciting. Now, first off, I'm Colorado Springs / Manitou Springs for life. Denver, we love you, but you ain't as good as down here. Hey, I got to give my city a shout out.
I hear that.
So You're right. I'm a Pistons fan through and through. I will never wear any shirt of any NBA team besides Detroit basketball. I have a Darko Milicic jersey. I'm about it. However,
He went back to Darko.
I got it. No, yeah, I do. And mostly ironically, by the way, it's not because it was a $5 jersey when they were going out. I love watching the Nuggets. I've loved watching the Nuggets as a basketball fan, living in Colorado Springs. It's a 45 minutes or an hour to the Pepsi Center. So I just want to watch basketball. I go there every time the Pistons come, and I go there 10 other times a year too, because that's just what I want to do. Yeah. And so I've become very fond of the Nuggets. They are, outside of the Rockies, I do like the Rockies too, but they're my favorite Colorado team for sure. Hate the Broncos because of their fans. Hate the Avs because I'm a Red Wings fan. But the Nuggets they're just fun. And when I was really getting into basketball was when Carmelo got here. And so it was a fun era when I'm a Pistons fan. I'm winning a championship. Should have been at least 2. And if we didn't draft Darko and we had D-Wade instead, maybe it's 3 or 4. However, the 2000s for me were awesome because I had 8 straight years or whatever of Eastern Conference Finals for the Pistons, had a championship, devastating loss in 2005. Had the Nuggets and Carmelo, almost Rookie of the Year. I mean, going against LeBron, JR comes in, Allen Iverson comes in. Now, that also sparks some emotions because now the Pistons trade Chauncey to Denver for Allen Iverson in 2008, or maybe 2010. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure it's 2010.
I think you're right. So I had the whole 2000s of the Pistons and being able to go to a ton of Nuggets games.
Right.
So I've become a fan of the Nuggets. I always root for the Nuggets unless they're playing the Pistons. That's the point I'm at. So if I could choose a team to win the NBA championship, it's the Nuggets. They are going to be good for a long freaking time.
You mean Denver?
Yes.
Now, I'm very curious. Who do you think... Do you think that Jokic will remain the best player over the years? Because I think... You don't think so? A lot of people feel like Jamal Murray or the Porter kid can pass him up. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
So, specifically, Michael Porter Jr., I think, has shown something in the bubble that we all kind of thought was there but hadn't seen at all. I see it a little bit now. So, I guess I don't know. I guess I can't take one side of that question, yes or no. I mean, it's Jokic is going to be the best player for a while. He's going to be the most unique player the entire time until Bull becomes, 25, 26 years old.
That's going to be scary.
And who knows what happens with him if he can stay off the injury list and all that. But, I mean, you've got dudes. Jamal Murray's still young, getting better every year. Jokic continues to get better and skinnier, by the way. You see him compared to when he left?
Yeah, that is very true.
When the bubble?
He for sure now. If Jokic comes back jacked, it's gonna be a problem.
Oh, it's over.
Do you consider him the best big in the league right now, center wise?
Say that again.
Do you think he's the best big right now in the league, center wise, not power forwards? Anthony Davis is a power forward.
He shouldn't be because Joel Embiid should be.
He shouldn't be, but he is, right?
But I think Jokic is more likely to win an MVP in the short term.
I heard that notion before. Here's why I don't believe Jokic will ever even get close to one. Because we talked about this before.
Think he'll win one, by the way.
But Damian Lillard doesn't even get considered for the MVP conversation. And his team has literally not missed the playoffs since he's been in the league.
Yeah, but they're also like 3rd and 30 going into the bubble this year or whatever.
That is true. I mean... But people don't consider injuries and things like that. And Dame has had a reputation for not having the best support around him. So even still with you coming in and getting these games, it showed with like CJ McCollum wasn't CJ McCollum so far. Melo played good, but he wasn't like he was Denver or early New York Knicks Melo. So I think Dame needs more credit than what he's gotten. I am going to do this 100%. With you real quick because I'm curious about your perspective on the MVP race. To me, before injuries, I thought Luka should have been number 1 in the MVP race. I will say that Jimmy Butler also deserved to be in there too because no one predicted that Miami would have been how they were, and I don't think they would have even gotten close to how they were had they not had Jimmy Butler.
I mean, I can't buy Jimmy Butler honestly for 1 second. All respect to Jimmy Butler, but can we really talk about him in the same breath as Giannis, as LeBron, even AD?
See,
Luka,
now that right there.
I mean, we just can't.
See, that right there, that's what I don't like about the MVP award. It's not about a name thing. It's who is the best player, who adds the most value to your team. It's about, yeah, your numbers have to look pretty and all that stuff, and he has good numbers. But it's impact first, your performance. How does that team elevate in that situation? It's a very young team. They played good, but they'll be the first to tell you. A lot of those guys were like, Jimmy set the culture here. Like, no different than what Steph Curry did before he became Steph Curry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to compare them, but I'm just saying, like, I just think he deserves more credit than he's gotten. I don't think it's fair to him or a guy like Dame, guys who got it by working hard in bad situations. I don't think that's fair.
Well, Jimmy Butler's shooting 24% from three this year. So that alone, unless you're putting up Giannis-type numbers, for a shooting guard, is tough to get over.
But he's also still one of the top backcourt defenders, too, though.
Sure. But, I mean, AD's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I mean, I'm still going to take that over. I mean, all right, I'm looking this up, so this isn't off the dome. But 20 points, 7 boards, 6 assists for Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
45.5, so we'll say 46% shooting, and 24 from three. Those are not bad numbers. That's a quality dude. Obviously, we've talked about the cultural impact that Jimmy Butler has.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about the MVP, and whether, putting aside what any of us think it should be, the fact is, it's who's the top player statistically on the best teams.
Okay.
Damian Lillard, and the who brings the most value to me, is the MVP.
Now,
but
see,
he's not going to have anything close to that. Will be 30 points and 8 assists or something. Those are real numbers, but they have a losing record, so it's just not going to happen.
Now, see, that's where I'm going to come and get you. See, the best team with the best player doesn't always get it. If that was the case in 2015, James Harden and Steph Curry had similar records. Some people thought that James Harden should have got it because he had better numbers and the records were similar. So you have to be careful with that argument. If you want to say that, then LeBron would not have, the 4 or 5 MVPs that he has. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, Kobe only got, one?
He only got 1 and Shaq got 1. Shout out Steve Nash.
Which is crazy. So, yeah, let's say we can agree on right now the way the MVP is awarded is flawed, period.
Oh, absolutely, without question.
But if you look at the history of how it's been awarded, Jimmy Butler has no chance, period.
Absolutely. I mean, if that's the case, then
Giannis is going to win. I'd put big money on that.
You said Giannis is going to win?
Should.
You said Giannis is going to win?
I think he should.
Here's why I'm going to say Luka deserved it more. Again, expectations. Luka was expected to make a jump. He wasn't expected to make this jump. And I'm looking at situation. Out west, this is your sophomore year. Even though he has played professionally, and for some reason people they just want to discredit that. I get that the NBA is different, but even he has said there's a skill gap here versus there. They're more skilled there. They work on the fundamentals more overseas, which is why I have a lot of respect for the EuroLeague and stuff like that. But I feel like if a young guy can come in, he's not that athletic. He just it takes a freaking genius to get
bro.
Yeah, that is amazing that you don't need a LeBron athleticism as long as you know how to play the game right. Like even the way my guy Todd explained it. Rebounding is a legit skill, which is why Kevin Love was so great at offensive rebounding in Minnesota. I think that when a guy just knows how to play and he's getting the most out of his teammates, and again, his team was not fully healthy when he came in, but they were still winning games. People forget they were the number 1 seed for a little bit out west as well, and they did not have Kristaps Porzingis back, and he certainly wasn't playing like himself until recently. So I think with that being said, and Giannis's path, and we all know the West and the East it's not the same. Whether the East has gotten a little bit tougher or not is irrelevant because it's still no comparison. We were just talking about
the top 6 or so are the same, but it drops off so fast.
That very true. But with the West, literally the top 14 teams are competitive. You don't know. You could literally lose. You could be a 4 seed in the West, and then 2 weeks before the playoffs, and you can drop to a whole 12th seed. It's not like it's impossible. We've seen something similar to it happen. You can't really afford any losses in the West. So I just think it's unfair to punish Luka. and reward Giannis. Giannis does deserve an MVP. I just think Luka deserves it more this year for the jump, for breaking expectations and being a tough seed.
If you take away Giannis from the Bucks and you take away Luka from the Mavericks, what has more of an effect right now? Not over the next 5 or 6 or 10 years, but right this moment. What has more of an effect?
Luka, for sure. They aren't a playoff team at all. Come on. No.
Bro, the Bucks are not a playoff team without Giannis. Chris Middleton
Out
is
east?
nice. And
Out
I love
east.
my dude. Pistons drafted Brandon Jennings. Didn't turn out very well. However, we drafted Chris Middleton. His rookie year, traded him for Brandon Jennings. Heartbreaking. Anyway, Chris Middleton is a certified baller. Right on the edge of 50, 40, 90. I don't think he's going to hit it. I think he's going to end it 49.5 field goal percentage or something as a shooting guard. Mm-hmm. Great. I mean, a legit all-star. But there is nobody else.
So you don't like the Lopez brothers, George Hill, Eric Bledsoe, DiVincenzo. You don't think that team out east could still make the playoffs? Kristaps wasn't healthy this year, though, is what I'm saying. You see?
Okay, how's he doing in the bubble?
Huh?
Right this moment, I said. Right this moment. How is Kristaps doing in the bubble?
Okay, that's that stuff I'm talking about. Okay, really?
Kristaps been hurt. I mean, what do you... If the Mavericks lose wins, obviously, yes, without Luka. But the Bucks without Giannis are, like, destitute.
I feel like the impact is similar. If you put them and switch them in situations, they have the same success to me. I don't think that Giannis would go to Dallas and they wouldn't have the same success. Do you feel like Luka would go to the Bucks and it would be a significant drop-off out east?
I think it would be a drop-off for sure. Right now, by the way, please understand, if I had to choose somebody to build a team around right now, it's Luka, and it's not close. But
now, see, that's disrespectful.
How is that disrespectful?
You just said it's not close, like Giannis isn't out here doing what Giannis does.
But Giannis is what, 25, 26 now?
They're like our
team,
age.
I'm looking at 20-year-old Luka Doncic.
That's true.
At 29, 9, and 9.
Yeah, okay.
For sure.
That's true. I get what you're saying.
Please, I was probably exaggerating to make a point. But I stand by what I said.
And you should. And we're going to cover a lot more, but we're going to wrap this particular episode up. Guys, please follow my guy, A.A. Ron. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But no, shout out to Aaron Coughlin, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Had a really good time doing this with you. We're going to put out a little bit more content coming up soon. So if you want to give your social medias any shout out or whatever, do you have anything you want to promote?
I mean, not really. Instagram's Aaron Coughlin, 33, AARON, COUGHLIN 33. I use Twitter a little bit, but Instagram's pretty much my thing.
Oh, long shout out. Now, I'm playing. You guys know where to find me. Links will be in the description. We'll pick back up off this shortly. So, love you guys so much. Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you later. Livewire Podcast, we're out.